that is ranking and pricing development in the U20 World Championships and U18 World Championships. So after that, this competition started in 1991, and we continue the top 8 in these 30 years. So slight increase the best place. So that's the basis for our development of the result, the senior event in the World Championships and the Olympic Games. So another history of our event, that is the history of the event in domestic major competition. That's the national championships, that's the national games, that's like Olympic Games. And we have games of inter-prefecture with a multi-event, football, basketball, swimming, and other events. And that is the corporate championships, that's the team championships of athletics. The team is constructed with employees of each corporation. That's like Hitachi, Toyota, and Toshiba, and Sony, and other. And that is an event in the college championships of athletics. And we have also another games for high school students. That's the start after World War II, and that is also the multi-event of inter-high school. So the first event of race walking is started in 1929 as a track event of men's 5,000, and that's changed and that's continued until 1954. But I don't know how they select the our representative athlete for the Olympic Games in Berlin for 50K. But we have the men 5,000 meter as a track event long time as a national championships. And we start the Olympic event in the 1915s. The first is men's 20,000 meter race walking, and changed a road event next year and 20K. And 2 years after, we start men 50K in 1958. Also, that's the start. So we complete the Olympic event 20 and 50 in 1950. And we have also the national games. We start 1961 as a men's event. That's 5,000 and 10,000. 1 year is 20,000 men event. We changed. And 1982, we start the boys event in 1982. That's the start of our race walking event for the U20. And with the U19 girls event in 1919. And for the corporate championships, we start men 3,000 and changed men 5,000 meters in 1965. And for the collegiate, we start that very new, very late from the national championships, national games, corporate championships. But for students only, that start in 1989. Men 10,000 and women 5,000. And high school games and boys 5,000 and girls 3,000 in 2001. That's the history of race walking event in Japan. Okay. Sorry. So move on to the history of judges. That's not so old system. IWAF and WA stood the judgment system in 1996. Before this year, only that is a recommendation of the human relationships. But after 1996, the IWF changed the rules and the development system of judges. 2002, as IRWJ started the panel system and narrowing down the number of international judges from over 150 to 30. So that the purpose was to standardization of the criteria and judgment. So before 2001, the criteria of the judgment is very different. One criteria. So that's confusing. That was confused. So, but the Japan athletics did not develop the judgment system. So in the World Championships in Paris 2003, we have many disqualifications. 3 of 5 participants disqualified. So that's a defeat, huge, catastrophic defeat of Japan race walking in Paris. So we changed the system. Okay, so we create in 2004 the JRWJ panel system, and yes, a panel system with supervising of IRWJ, Mr. Nicola Maggio and Mr. Koo Chong Ben from Malaysia. So, and start to invitation of IRWJ for Japanese domestic competitions. And 2005, IWAF started to authorize the competition for the participation of Olympic Games and World Championships. So we have to invite the IWJs from overseas to authorize our record of domestic competition. So after we accomplished the highly consistency of judgment in domestic competition, and we reduced the DQs in international competition. That's a key of our success. That's development of JRWJ panel system. Next. So another history is a change of background. For the Olympic Games in Mexico in 1960s, our giant, the late Kazuo Saito, moved to Mexico City and continued training in Mexico City. But he returned to Japan, and so we started the training camp in Mexico. So from 1918 to 1919, our training methodology is based on that of Mexico and China and Japanese marathon. After, we learned from Spain. That's methodology of the late Jordi Lupardo. After 2000, we learned from Italy, the giant of Italy, coach Sandro da Milano, and we learned from Australia. That's a changing history of background. So our start is from Mexico, from 1918. That's the first training camp in Mexico. He is the coach, Mr. Morikawa. He's now leaving. He's a representative of Japan in the Olympic Games in Montreal in 1970s. He is now the manager of judges, Mr. Akira Fujisaki, as a Mexican athlete, and he is the past national head coach of race walking event, Mr. Kosaka. He coached Tani, Yamazaki, and Fujise, and Fuji. Now she is preparing for the Olympic Games in Tokyo 2021. And we learn from the right Mr. Huxleber and the right Mr. Ernest Canto. So the property of our training is the training load, increase of training load in altitude in 2,300 meters. So that's an increase of amount of training load. So we developed this revolution of our record revolution is come from the training method of Mexico City. So many athletes go to Mexico City and training and increased the record, Japan national record in this period, 1980s to 1990s. So another method we learn from China, People's Republic of China. Sorry, that is Japanese. So we have training camp and participation for the competition in China in early 1980s. So we have the cooperation of altitude training and research with the China Athletics in 1993. This is the report of the research. So the property of this collaboration is same as collaboration in Mexico City. That's training load in altitude and increase of amount of training load and intensity in China with collaboration of China. Next, in 1990s, we start to run from the marathon training in Japan. It's a marathon event until 1980s, 1990s. Many good athletes for the marathon event and marathon coach. So that's me. That's mine in 1994 in Japan 50K championships. That's the coach, Mr. So. That's elder brother of the So brothers. He was 2 hours and 8 minutes for marathon. In this age, he's head coach of marathon for Japan national team. So the feature of the methodology is 3 or 4 months and the same distance of event. 40K to 50K and intensity to the intensity of competition is 90% is 3 times, 2 times, once. And 30 to 20K, almost same as competition intensity, 1, 3 or 2 times, 3 or 2 times. And shorter distance, 4 times, 4 times. And under 10K, the maximum intensity, 4 times, 3 times, 0. So with these training programs, many athletes worked in the 4 hour to 4 and 10 in the 1990s. That's based on the Japanese marathon event training methodology. But the problem is technique. So that is focusing only on the intensity, but we don't forget focusing on the technique. So I cannot break 4 hours, and it was still difficult to break 4 hours in this age. So after 1990s, we start to learn from Spain. That's a photo after the 50K event in the World Championships in Athens, 1997. That's the right Jordi Riparto and Mr. Imamura. So background start is a collaboration with Mr. Sonohara, the past national head coach, and coach Mr. Ejiri and Riparto in Tenerife for the preparation period for the World Championships in Rome. So after, when Mr. Sonohara was national head coach, he invited Jordi Riparto, and his training group for the Japanese domestic competition, 50K. I also participated. So we started training camp in Barcelona, Spain, after 1996. So until early 2000s, Spain was one of the two main foreign training sites for Japanese athletes, Mexico and Spain. So the methodology of Jordi is based on many success and theories, and well-organized training means along with target and technical training, which always reflect two bases. So after 2000, we start to learn from Italy. After in World Championships in Paris, our athlete disqualified 3 of 5 participants. So we changed the policy. So in the spring of 2004, the U23 athletes participate the training camp in Saluzzo in Italy, North Italy. That's a Schwarzer and Enemosa and Sandro da Milano and Morioka, world record holder Suzuki, and he retired Tani, the young Tani, and Kawasaki. That's the first training camp in Saluzzo. So from 2005 and 6, Mr. Imamura go training program for coaches by Japanese Olympic Committee. And another 2003, I participated a scientific symposium in New Zealand. When returning, I go to the Australian Institute of Sport and start to communicate with researchers of Australia. So after that, from 2011 to 2012, Mr. Yanagisawa go to Australia, and he was in the training program for coaches by Japanese Olympic Committee. So he support Jared Talent. He just retired in the March. So he support in 1 year from 2011 to the 2012. That is the age year of Olympians in London. So these two countries, two nations, Italy and Australia, is advanced countries of sports science. So they moved Mr. Imamura and Yanagisawa learn the practical application of the sports science for the less walking. So that's learn from Italy. That's the Japanese report of Mr. Imamura. So that is a photo of preparation camp for 2004 artists. That's me, Kawasaki, Tani, and Chibarero, and Yamazaki, and Mr. Kosaka. In fact, we continued training camps 2004 to 2006, and we started in 2012 and continued until 2015. Yeah, that's Mr. Imamura. And Australia, that's a Japanese report of Mr. Yanagisawa. He go to AIS, Australian Institute of Sports. So From 2018 to 19, we sent athlete, and I also go to and AIF. So that's 2018 to 2019. Yeah, Mr. Balance and coach from Poland.